All right, Joe, say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Sure to thank our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Cheshvan, Steve and Teri Czinn, for this dedicating all the Shumer Joshua's this month in honor of the birth of their granddaughter, Devorah Eliana Czinn, and in memory of Dr. Zinn's father, Bunim Tzvi Ben Chaim, Zechus Shmuel Robyn Korobkin, for dedicating all the Shumer Joshua's this month as the zechus refuah sheleima for Rabin's cousin, serving in the IDF, Benyamin Chaim Pesach ben Musha Chana, and the creation of the Yahrzeit of Rabin's mother, Pesa Mira Bas Chaim, Dr. Moshe and Ellen Gavant, in memory of Dr. Gavant's parents, Yakov Meir ben Moshe, and Shena Bas Abba, Dr. Behzad and Yemina Soufer of Los Angeles, in the merit of a speedy and full recovery for Esther Bracha Bas Chaya. Our week of learning sponsors, Judy Posner, in memory of Shimshon Lazer ben Moshe, Chaim ben Eliyahu Cohen, and Daniel Yehuda ben Shimshon Lazer, and Leah Soul, in memory of Samuel Wolf, Zichron Bracha. May our memory be an inspiration for us all in our day of learning sponsors. Baruch Hashem, Valentina Vase, in loving memory of her brother Aaron Davidovich, Zichron Bracha. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, all of the Neshama Slav and Aliyah, the families Ein Nechama, all of those who need a refuah should have one together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu should emerit Hashem return our hostages to their families b'shalom and b'karov, and our soldiers should be successful b'chol ma'aseh yedehem. Well, so with that, let us begin. A lot to do today. Really great daf out of us. Meir, so I'm finishing the parak today. Today's daf is Kuf Lamed Tes 139, and we are picking up at Meir Hashem at the Mishnah on Kuf Lamed Ches Amud Beis 138b, the bottom of the Amud. Ha'av. Tolesh umachil lechol mi sheyirtzeh. Supposed to remember again, referring to the same case that we've been dealing with up until this time, which is a father is allocating his estate to one of his sons. Now remember again, the way we've established that these gifts work is that essentially a father is giving over title to his son now, but retaining usage until his death. Then at the point of death, that usage is called peros. Then at the point of death, Peros usage shifts over to the son. If you take a quick look at the Rashbam for just a moment, the Rashbam is 5 lines up from the bottom. Ha'av tolesh u'ma'achil ha'kosif nechasav limno la'achar mosel kai. So we're talking about a case where a father is allocating his estate to his son after his death. De akni le'gufa mihayom upiri la'achar misa. So Rashbam explains, how does that type of gift work? So father gives over title to the son now, but retains usage until his death. The hilchach ma'achil ha'av b'chayov peros shetalish lechol mi sheyirtzeh. Avamash. So therefore, again, what that means is because father retains usage. Obviously, what does usage mean? Usage means that he gets to use the produce however he wants. So if he wants to consume it, he could consume it. If he wants to sell it, he could sell it. He could do whatever he wants with that produce. So therefore, again, avamash shehiniach mechuber lekarka b'shas misaso. So again, we'll talk about that last part in just a moment. So therefore, I will say, at the point that the father dies, so now the way the Mishnah picks up is as follows. Let's go back to the Mishnah now. So therefore, again, we'll call him Yakov. Yakov goes ahead and assigns his entire estate, gives a gift to his son Ruvain. The way that gift works is Yakov retains usage, gives over to Ruvain his son. Yakov gives over to his son title and retains peros usage. Therefore, again, during his lifetime, Yakov could assign that produce to whoever he wants. He could gift it, he could sell it. That's what it means. Now, when Yakov dies, let's say it turns out that there is cut produce left on the field. So now the halacha is that cut produce doesn't go to his son Reuven, to whom he assigned the property. Rather, that goes to the rest of his heirs, which is another way of saying that what Reuven inherits is the land itself and anything attached to the land. Anything detached on that property goes into the general inheritance pool. Beautiful. Says the Gemara. Taloshin muchober lo. Now, what you can infer from this is it's only the detached property that goes into the. If you actually look at the Rashbam, talush in last Rashbam, masheniach talush harehin shel yarshin aval hamechuber harehu shel mekabel matana dika gufa shel karkadami. So also what that means is like this. So therefore, when Yaakov dies, and he goes ahead and he leaves. Now, at the point that he dies, so his son Reuven gets usage, peros, not only title, but gets usage, peros, over that property. Anything that is attached to the land also goes to Reuven, but apparently any detached produce goes to the rest of the inheritors. So the Gemara says, Taloshin, it's only detached produce that goes into the general inheritance pool. Mechuber lo, anything attached produce goes to Reuven as part of his allocation. Okay, so I'll say, so therefore again, so just to frame this for a second, again, one more time. Yakov, father, goes ahead and makes a matana to his son. He's giving him or not, should I take it back? It doesn't have to be matna shkemira. It could just be he's allocating his estate to one son. The way the halacha understands that gift works is, what is father giving Reuven at that moment? What is he giving him? Title. What is father retaining? Usage. At the time that father dies, usage, what we also call peros, goes over to his son. Now the Mishnah gets into what about produce of that land. So obviously, during the lifetime of the father, the produce is his. He's using everything. What about when he dies? Let's say, and therefore, by definition, during the father's lifetime, if he wants to sell produce, assign produce, that's his prerogative as well. Now when he dies, right, so now Yaakov, father, dies. There's produce left on the field. There's two different types of produce. There's attached and detached. So the Mishnah tells us, interestingly enough, detached produce is not considered to be part of the gift to Reuven. So where does it go? Now, if it goes into the general inheritance pool, so it goes to Yaakov's other inheritors. Attached produce, however, is part of the gift to Reuven, and therefore he acquires that. The Gemara now says, is that true? So talish in mechuber lo. So is that true that attached produce is part of the gift that goes to Reuven, that goes to the designated son? Is that true? Top of Kof Lamed Tes 139a. But Tanya, we learned shaminas hamichubarin lelokeach. So both say, listen to this. Now let me take this case outside. Then we'll look at it inside the Rashbam. Remember, we had last time the following situation. So same case. Yakov father goes ahead and gifts to one son, Reuven. Now I will say, what's talacha? Remember, so this was a Mishnah. Neither Yakov nor Reuven are allowed to sell the field, right? Yakov can't sell it. Why? Because he doesn't have title. Reuven can't sell it. Why? He doesn't have usage. So neither should sell. But let's say Reuven the son did sell it. Let's say Reuven the son did sell it. What's the halacha? Is the sale valid? It is, but it doesn't really vest until Yakov the father dies. So now, watch this. So now let's play this out. So Yakov father assigned his estate as a gift to Reuven. Reuven sold it while Yakov was still alive. Now Yakov dies, and let's say Reuven sold it to Levi. Now Yakov dies, so Levi goes ahead and gets the field. So the Gemara says, the Brisa says that upon the death of Yakov, Levi gets the field. We assess the value of attached produce. And that attached produce, either the produce itself or the value, does not go to the purchaser. Rather, who does it go to? It goes to the heirs of Yakov. What do you see from here? You see from here that attached produce is not included in the gift. So what's going on over here? A contradiction. Now let's see it in the Rashbam. The Rashbam says, Rabbi say, second on the top, second wide line in, second line from the top, middle of the line with Perusha. No, Yakov goes ahead and writes all of his property to his son Reuven. And Reuven goes ahead and sells all of the property while his father is still alive. Now that's a no-no, but it works. In other words, right, the sale doesn't vest, but technically it works. Then later on, Yaakov the father dies. So again, upon the death of the father, Levi the purchaser gets his purchase. However, lo zacha halokeach ela begufa shel karka. Aval beperos afagav the nuchubarim the yarshin. The ficha therefore was but yet, if upon the death of Yaakov there is attached produce, Levi the purchaser does not get that attached produce. Rather, where does the attached produce go? It goes to the Yarshim, it goes to the inheritors of Yakov. What do you see from here? That attached produce is not considered part of the gift/sale. So we have a contradiction. To which the Gemara says, no, we don't. Lo kasha, kan bibino, kan ba'achar. Very simple distinction. Everything depends on who the transaction is happening with. One is talking about a transaction with a son. One is talking about a transaction with a third party. So in other words, the halacha is like this. When Yakov goes ahead and gifts this property to his son, right? He gifts it to Ruvain. So now obviously what's happening over here is he's gifting the title, now usage after his death. Upon his death, Yakov has in mind that the attached produce is going to go to his son. Why? Because when a father makes a gift to his son, a father certainly does so ba'ayin yofa, with an incredible spirit of generosity. So again, the talush part, the detached produce, that's not part of the gift. But the land and anything attached to the land, that is part of the gift. However, when selling the property to someone else, to a third party, an unrelated third party, then halacha l'maisa, that is not the case. So therefore, again, in a situation or in the case where Ruvain the son sells the land, now happens during the lifetime of his father Yakov, and he sells it to Levi, upon the death of Yakov, Levi gets the land, but only the land, not any attached produce. Just a difference in the scope of a sale or in the scope of a gift to a child versus to an independent third party. Since a person, by definition, feels close to his son, when he goes in and he gives it, in this case, when Yaakov gifts the property to Ruvain, he has in mind that it be as expansive as a gift as possible, and therefore includes attached produce as well. Incredible. Beautiful. Mishnah. Heniach banim gidolim uktanim. Silvio said this is a really interesting case in the Mishnah. So now, what we'll call back to leaving aside any type of pre-death gifts, we're talking now just about stam halachos of inheritance. So let's say again, Yakov dies. Yakov, the father, dies. He leaves behind banim gidolim uktanim. He leaves behind older sons and younger sons, so adults and children. So what's the halacha? Ein hagidolim misparnas ma'ayidei akitanim. The older ones cannot support themselves at the expense of their younger siblings. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. So, misparnasin means levush uksus. So, interestingly enough, so misparnasin means, again, food and clothing. Levush uksus. So therefore, again, the Gemara says the following idea. So now, in this case, where there was no specific allocation that was made, so there's this. We have to be careful. If we have older siblings, younger siblings, the older siblings could technically take advantage of the younger siblings. Therefore, the Mishnah says, older siblings, make sure not to take advantage of your younger siblings. Therefore, again, what do we do? Ella cholkin b'shava. So we'll say what we do as soon as we can is we divide up the estate equally. Now, by the way, equally, of course, is relative. If there's a bachar, if there's not a son's, whatever it is, the point over here is, especially where you see where all of the inheritors are adults. So we assume, even if we don't rush to divide everything up, everyone's going to be mindful because there's a watchful eye. They're all adults. Where there's adults and children, we are concerned about the children. And therefore, we order a division, an equitable division of the estate as soon as we can. So this is an interesting case. Nasu hagidolim yisu aktanim. If the older children had their wedding expenses paid by, we'll see who it was paid by, right? But we'll call it paid by the estate. So therefore, the younger children yisu ktanim. Therefore, the younger children also have the right to have their wedding expenses paid by the estate. Now, let's say the younger children say, to their older siblings, we remember when you got married, there was a 20-piece band and 14 carving stations, and we want the same thing for our chasana. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Ein shomen lahem. We do not listen to them. Ela mashe nasan lahem aviyem nasan. Whatever the older ones got from their father, they got from their father. Now, the Mishnah doesn't read normally, it doesn't make sense, because it just, in the first part, it made it sound like whatever the older ones got, the younger ones got, and then it says, no, the younger ones get something different than the older ones. So we'll reconcile that in the Mishnah. Next, hiniach banos gedos uktanos. So we'll say, in the first case, in the Mishnah, there were sons. Adult sons, adult sons and minor sons. Here, what about daughters? Banos gedos uktanos. So again, older daughters, younger daughters. Ein hagidolos misparnasos aydiak tanos. So it seems to be the parallel halacha. The older girls should not take advantage and support themselves from the estate at the expense of their younger sisters. Nor should the younger sisters be supported at the expense of their older sisters. Ella cholkos b'shava. So it sounds like the same halacha just by daughters. That when you have this mix of adult and children inheritors, just divide up the estate. Just divide up the estate. This way everybody gets their share. We don't have to be worried about anyone taking more than what they're entitled to. Next. Nasu gidolos, yisu kitanos. If halacha l'maaseh the older daughters were married off by the estate, so the younger daughters are entitled to get married off by the estate as well. Vim amru kitanos. First one I will say. Vim amru kitanos hari anu nosos kedera shenasasem atem. I will say now. Let's say again the younger sisters say their older sisters again. You have beautiful chasanas. We want to have a chasana like you. Ein shomen lahem. We do not listen to them. So also we'll have to see exactly what this means. Now, interestingly enough, zechomer bebanos mi bebanim. So also there is a chumrah, interestingly enough, a stringency that exists by daughters over sons. Shabanos nizonos al habanim ve'in nizonos al habanos. We are going to see, I will say, that when there is a choice between, or actually differently, support of daughters takes precedence over inheritance for sons. We're going to see this in a little bit, where halacha l'maaseh again, the first order of business of the estate is to support daughters and the widow. If there's not enough assets, that takes precedence. Only afterwards, if there's enough assets, then we could give some to the sons for inheritance. But that's only true if there are sons and daughters. If there are just daughters, then ultimately, again, we treat everything like an inheritance and everybody gets their portion. Okay? Again, we'll obviously expound on this. We'll obviously expound on this in the Gemara. The Rashbam says over here, "Vein nizonos habanos." It's the first wide line in the Rashbam. Haktanos min hagdolos tevemakom shein yarshos kol nechasim leka tnai ksuva te mazon binon nukvan. So we'll say the Rashbam points out today. We've learned this before that halacha l'maisa that. If you take a look, actually, let's read one more Rashbam. If you see zechomer bebanos, it's in the short lines, about 6 lines up from before it gets wide. Zechomer bebanos, hecha debanos yarshos, mehecha debanim yarshim, v'iken nami banos ba'adayu, shabanos nizonos bin habanim, benechasim rubin. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, halacha l'maisa, daughters are entitled to mizonos. Daughters are entitled to mizonos. Daughters are entitled to be supported by the estate. Habanim yershuva habanos nizonos tahachi havi tnai ksuva. So we'll say. So remember again, the concept that a estate is obligated to support daughters was written in the ksuva. I'm sorry. Benon nukvan diyahavan lechi minoi inon misnazim in chasai. That's the phrase. Literally, again, daughters that I have from you will be supported by the estate. See, interestingly enough, with the Mishnah, and again, we'll get more into this in the Gemara, that when there are sons and daughters, so really financial precedence goes to support the girls. And then again, if there's money left over, that could be inheritance for the boys. Again, we'll discuss how much money. But if it's just daughters, then that stipulation of the ksuba doesn't kick in. We view the whole thing as inheritance, and all the daughters get their portion of inheritance. Okay, let's see the Gemara. Both say a lot of really interesting halachas over here. Amar Rava. They both say I am on Kof Lamed Tes 139a, second wide line in end of the line Gemara. Amar Rava. Now third line. Hi Gadol. Achi delavash ve'echsim ibesa. My da'avid avid. So listen to this. So remember the way the Mishnah started? The way the Mishnah started is no siblings should take advantage of the estate and kind of dip into the pool and take for themselves and put someone else at a disadvantage. Rather, what should they do? When there are adult and minor siblings, just divide up everything. Let everybody get their portion, then everybody can do whatever they want with their portion. So now Rava says like this, if one of the older brothers went ahead, before the estate was divided, and took money from the estate for his clothing, it's not good, but my David Avid, what he did is done. What he did is done. In other words, you can't claw it back. If you look at the Rashbam, Gadol Achi, Shenose Venose Menechasim, V'ika Hana Liasmi, Ki Mechse Belevushim, Noim Kiechid L'Shtam Minei, My David, v'lo yitlu kinegdo. Mir lechatchila in levazveis b'mamon echav kol kach. So also we'll discuss who this brother is in just a moment. So if an older brother went ahead, took money from the estate, used it for his clothing, shouldn't do it. Right? In other words, no one should be taking money from the estate while it has not yet been divided. It's not right. And if somebody does, generally what we'll do is we'll deduct that from his portion. But in this case, if the older brother took money for his clothing, we don't claw it back. My David of it, but 1 second. But the Mishnah says you're not allowed to do that. The Mishnah says that older siblings can't take property from the pool, right? They can't take property from the estate. To which the Gemara says, no. Masnisin besircha. So first of all, before we go on, Rava's statement is what Rasham was saying. Rava's statement was talking about an older brother who is kind of like in charge of managing the estate. So for him, it is in the best interest of the estate that he is clothed well. We'll say is a profound idea. Why? Because since he's representing the estate, he's got to look good. I'll say again, there is a reason why the Torah Kedosha goes ahead and makes sure that there are big day kahuna. Right? Why is it that Kohanim can't roll in wearing whatever they want? Right? Why? Because I will say clothes make the man. At the end of the day, the way people glean their first impressions of who and what you are is how you're dressed. It's not a superficial thing. How you dress, how you present yourself, how you put yourself together says a lot about how you think about yourself and how you hold yourself. A person looks like a shmata that is reflective of what they think of themselves. Then clearly, if you dress like that and you present like that, then you don't recognize that you are truly a tselem Elokim, that you are truly an image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But a person puts themselves together, that shows that again, that I know that I'm choshev, I know that I'm important. I'll tell you just a message, this is a funny story. I've always been happy with my sons that they tuck in their shirts. Right? And it's hard with yeshiva bachrim. Well, now they're not bachrim, now they're fathers. But so because like a yeshiva bacher, is a prince of Torah. As a prince of Torah, you should look like a prince. You should look like just put together. So my son Mordechai, we just had a baby, Elana Tova, Baruch Hashem. So he sent me a picture in the hospital, and it was a long day. It was all disheveled, and his shirt was out. I said, Shekel and Mazel Tov, just do me a favor. Just before you forward the picture, just either crop it at the bottom a little bit, or just take one more. Just take one more. My wife was there. She's like, really? Not. So again, there's something to presenting yourself in a certain way. Each and every one of us is an ambassador of the Ribono Shel Olam. And I'm not even a yeka. Right? Each of us is an ambassador of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I say it's important. It's important. This way, by the way, also just as an aside, this is why, even for davening, we have halachas about how we go ahead and we come in. Right? There's halachas. It's not there to stamp out a division. It's there because understand who you are, and understand what you are, and understand the koach and the power that you bring to this world. So dress accordingly. Make sure your outfit befits your station in life. So therefore the Gemara says over here that again, that halacha l'maisa, we want the older brother to go ahead and we want the older brother to look good. So that older brother who's managing the affairs of the estate, great. Let him take the clothing and let him dip into the estate, take the clothing, because that's for everyone's benefit. However, the Gemara says over here, what is our Mishnah talking about? Our Mishnah says masnisim b'sircha. So we'll say, what's a sircha? Sircha is a brother who sits and does nothing. Adam batal she'ein lahem revach badavar. Right? So that's okay. He's the brother who does nothing. He sits around. So that guy sits around, so there's absolutely no need for the estate to invest in his wardrobe, because again, there's no return on investment over there, right? It's not doing anything. So the Gemara says, Sircha pshita. So obviously, again, unfortunately, if he's doing nothing, right? And the Rashbam says over here, Sircha adam batal she'ein lahem revach badavar. So if he's a Sircha, he's not doing anything. So again, pshita. So ma'adatema nechaluhu delo nival. So you might have thought, even for that brother, it's in the best interest of everyone that he not look fashleptzach. That's Latin, right? So you might have thought that again. That maybe again, it's in everyone's best interest that he not look all disheveled. Kamash B'lan though. I mean, yes, no one wants him to look disheveled, but that should be on his own dime, not on the estate's dime. Incredible. I will say, it's fascinating to see almost like the way that life works is the concept of reciprocal investment. In other words, if you're contributing, then others should invest in you. If you're not contributing, then don't expect any type of reciprocal investment. So older brother, or whoever, it doesn't have to be the older brother, the brother who is managing the affairs of the estate, okay, he's investing in the family should invest in him. The sircha brother, the guy's doing nothing, it's okay, you're doing nothing. If you're doing nothing, don't expect other people to invest in your futile endeavors. Incredible. Says the Gemara, let's go weiter. Nosu gidol misu kitanim. So now this is the part of the Mishnah. This is the part of the Mishnah about marriage that didn't read well, right? Because remember, again, the Gemara says, "My kamar." What does the Mishnah mean? Because the Mishnah made it sound like if the older siblings got married, so then the younger from the money of the estate, younger siblings are entitled to the same thing. But if the younger sibling said, "We want a chasana like you had," then halach is no, they don't get that. So what's going on? My kamar. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says it's fascinating. Hachi kamar nasu gidolim la'achar misasavian. Yisu kitanim la'achar misasavian. So we'll say what it means is like this. There are two cases. Let's say, again, father passed away and no one's gotten married. So in this case, all of the children are entitled to their wedding expenses from the estate. Obviously, this is all provided there's enough money. Right? So they're all entitled for wedding expenses from the estate. So the older kids get married, the young kids get married. Watch this. Aval nosu gidon b'chaya avihen, v'amru kitanim la'achar misasavian, hare anu nosin kiderach shenosasem atem. But watch the following case. Let's say, so we'll call it Father Yakov. Father Yakov is alive. The older children got married while he was alive. So he made them a particular type of chasana. Now Yakov dies, right? The younger children are getting married, and now so their wedding is going to be funded from the estate. So the Gemara says, let's say the younger children now say to the older children, we want the same type of chasana that our father made for you while he was alive. Ein shomen lahem. We do not listen to them. Rather, whatever the father did for the older ones, he did for the older ones. So this is very interesting. So in other words, obviously once the father is dead, and now again the estate has to make these chasanas, the estate is obligated to do things with a certain level of restraint and moderation. When the father is alive, he could do whatever he wants for his kids. Right? So therefore the older ones might have had all of the trimmings, right? All of the beautiful extras at the wedding. We tell the younger children, sorry, but again, that was when Yakov was alive. Now that Yakov is dead, the estate has to operate in a different way. And so however that allocation is made, it's made. And I will say, it's fascinating to see this because I think often in parenting, we often assume that what you do for one child, you have to do for all the children. And I think what the Gemara is teaching us is that's not necessarily the case. Different children need different things. And the same way our expectation of our children is not the same, even sometimes what it is that we're able to give them or do for them or should give them and do for them may not be the same either. This is the chanuch lenar al pi darko, to educate each child according to his way and to recognize again what one gets may or may not be the right thing for what the other one gets. It's fascinating. In any event, that's the halacha about the wedding. Hiniach panos gidolos ktanos shalach le'avua bar geniva l'rava. So avua bar geniva sent to Rava. Yalamdin Rabbeinu. So also listen to this. So teach us the following halacha. Or he asked them the following question. Love sava achla va'amda v'nises. Supposed to listen to this. So we'll call her Rachel, right? Rachel goes ahead and while she was single, she borrowed money. Right? She borrowed money. And now what happened? She achla means literally she consumes, she used the money. Va'amda v'nises. And now she goes ahead and she gets married. Baal lokeach havi o yoresh havi. So I'll say there's two things happening over here. So like the split screen. On one hand, Rachel in her single life borrowed money. Fine, right? She got married. She got married obviously with this outstanding debt. Rachel also brings property into her marriage. So now the shaila is yisodis dik shaila. So the shaila is over here. Is her husband? We'll call him Ruvain. Is Ruvain considered to be a purchaser or an inheritor of Rachel's property? Right. So obviously, when Rachel is alive. Right? When Rachel is alive, he's neither, right? He's a user. right? He's a user. He has hishtamshus. He has peros. When Rachel dies, let's say Rachel predeceases him. So now Reuven acquires the property. Is Reuven considered to be a lokeach, a purchaser, or is he considered to be an inheritor? Now we're going to see a fundamental distinction between those two statuses in just a moment. On one hand, lokeach avi. Now, by the way, one more important piece of information over here. When Rachel borrowed the money, in her single life, there was no document. It was what we call a milva al peh, a verbal agreement, a verbal loan. So now you see where this is going. Rachel passes away. Reuven gets her property. Creditor comes to Reuven to collect the debt, right? Because remember again, he lent Rachel money before Rachel got married. So now creditor wants to collect his debt. So now the shaila is, who has a stronger claim on Rachel's property? Creditor or husband? So the Gemara says, well, it depends. So if we say that Reuven, the husband, is like a purchaser of his wife's property, then when she dies, he has the status of a lokeach, a purchaser. If that's the case, then halacha l'maisa, verbal loans don't have the ability to collect from purchased property. Once property is purchased, and again, what's the logic behind that? Because a purchaser can't protect themselves. When a loan is not committed to writing, a purchaser has no way of knowing it exists. Because of that, again, even with my title search, right, I can't see any encumbrance because nothing is written down. So therefore, you can't collect from unwritten loans from purchased property. So if the husband is like a lokeach, then the creditor has no claim against him. Or maybe the husband is considered to be like an inheritor. And ultimately, again, someone who lends money verbally is considered to be, or maybe he's considered to be like an inheritor, and therefore, again, you can collect unwritten loans even from inheritors. So we'll say, see here, this, by the way, it's so interesting that it's taken so long in Shas for us to come to this question, right? We know that a husband inherits his wife and he has rights in her property even when she's alive. What is the nature of those rights? Is he a purchaser or is he an inheritor? And now we see, by the way, there's a nafkamina. If after she dies, now the creditor comes along and wants to collect property from the husband, does the creditor have the right? If he's a lokeach, no. If he's a yoresh, yes. Amar leitanina, we learned this. Nosu gidolos yisu ktanos. The Mishnah said, if older daughters got married from the money of the estate, younger daughters have the ability to do so as well. This is fascinating. My love, nisu gidolos labal yisu ktanos mibal. Doesn't it mean, Rabbi said, that's what? That if the older daughters got married, took estate property with them, that when the younger daughters get married, they have a right to extract property from their sisters' husbands in order to pay for their wedding. So you see from here that halacha l'maisa what? That halacha l'maisa, the younger sisters have the ability to claw back property. Lo nisu gidolos lebal yisu k'taz. Well, no, that's not what it means. What it means is that if the older sisters took money from the estate in order to get married, the younger sisters have the ability to do so as well. But it doesn't mean that the younger sisters have the ability to take it from the husbands of the older sisters. So Moshe says, "Ini is that so? V'hatana b'chia nisu gidolos lebal yisu k'tanos mi baal." I will say, 1 second. That's not what it says. It says halacha l'maisa. If the older sisters got married and took estate property with them into marriage, then the younger sisters, when they are getting married, have the ability to claw back some of that estate property from the husbands of their sisters. To which the Gemara says, maybe that's different. Dilma shani parnasa. Maybe support is different, and getting married is considered to be a part of that support. The islay kala, because everyone knows that it exists. In other words, when a man marries a woman, right, an older sister, and he knows that she has younger sisters who have not yet gotten married, he understands that he is getting encumbered property from his wife. So maybe that's a different kind of case. So didn't Rabin send this information in a letter? What did he send? If someone died, so we'll call him Yakov died, he left behind a widow, Rachel, and a daughter, so the widow is supported from his estate. Right? That's the way it works. Nisei Sabas, What if the daughter gets married? Amanuso nizonas min chasav. His widow is still supported by the estate. Meis sahabas. What happens if the daughter dies? So Am Rabbi Yehuda ben Achos, so Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina, ayidei hayamaisa. So what happens if the daughter dies? So Rabbi Yehuda, the son of the sister Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina, says ayidei hayamaisa. This happened to me. Va'amru, and the halacha was amanuso nizonas min chasav. The amana is still supported from the estate. So says the Gemara, if you say that a husband is treated like an inheritor of his wife's property, mishum hachi amanuso nizonas min chasav. That's why his amana is perpetually supported from the estate. Now, by the way, not perpetually, as until she gets her ksuba, until she goes and gets remarried. But if you say that he's a purchaser, amai nizonas min chasav, then ultimately, why is he sustained? Why is she constantly supported from the estate? Do you think, and if had Rabbi not sent that letter, would we not know the halacha? Vatnan, we learned. Rabbi said, this is fascinating. The following items do not revert back during Yovel. Remember again, Yovel is the Jubilee year, the 50th year. What happens during Yovel? There's a reset on land, right? All land goes back to its original order. That's why, interestingly enough, in Eretz Yisrael, so land purchases or land sales were really long-term leases. Since you know that at Yovel everything was going to go back, this maintains tribal integrity as well. But certain things do not go back. Now, I just want to point out, interestingly enough, if you want to know in a general sense what goes back and what doesn't go back, is very simple. Anything called a sale goes back. Anything called a matana, a gift, does not revert. So sales revert, gifts do not revert. That's the rule. Now you can plug it in. By the way, the Rashbam says, it's the last line, she'in chozrin, leba'alein she'in chozrin ela mimechar. Only sales revert back during Yovel, gifts do not. So here we go. Habachora, firstborn portion. Right, so let's say whatever the case is, but let's say again the Bachar got property from his father. So again, let's say that property, technically speaking, came from a different tribal designation. That does not go back in Yovel. Now again, why is that? Because remember, the Torah itself calls double portion a matana, calls it a gift, and gifts do not revert back during Yovel. Next, Amud Beis, right? Habachar v'hayorish is ishto, and one who inherits his wife. So interestingly enough, what do you see from here? That a husband is considered to be an inheritor of. In other words, this is pretty explicit. It's called one who inherits his wife, which tells you that a husband's relationship to his wife's property is that he is considered to be a yoresh, an inheritor, and not a purchaser. All right, pretty explicit. Look at the Rashbam. Vayoresh es ishto, mefarish chasam kasav yerusha sabal doraisa, v'ilokayach havi misha shenasa, filu la'achar misa lo nafka mechlal mechar, umemkar tehada b'yovel. So here's what's interesting. This is fascinating. Now, by the way, we were trying to look for what are nafkaminas if a husband is considered to be a purchaser or an inheritor by his wife's property. So first of all, nafkamina number one will be, like we saw before, if Rachel borrowed money while she was single, the loan is not recorded in a document. Now what happens? Rachel marries Ruvain. Rachel predeceases Ruvain. Right? Ruvain inherits her. Ruvain gets her property. Creditor comes to collect the debt. Can he collect from Ruvain? So now we saw nafkamina. What it depends. What does it depend on? If he's a lokeach, if he's a purchaser, creditor can't collect. Because a creditor doesn't have a right to go and collect from purchasers a document that was not recorded in a loan that was not recorded in a document. Right? If on the other hand he's an inheritor, then ultimately creditor can collect. Another nafkamina, does Rachel's property go back to its original source in Yovel? It depends. If husband is a yoresh, no. If husband is a lokeach, yes. Fascinating nafkamina. So, but again, the Bryce is quite explicit in saying that halakha l'maisa, he is considered, or the Mishnah, that he is a yoresh. So but even though Rabbi sent his letter, still do we know this? From Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Busha Skina, in Usha, they made the following takana. Listen to this. So we'll say, remember again, Nichse Malug is property that a woman brings into marriage, she retains the title. Husband gets usage. Now again, the difference between nichsei milug is husband does not guarantee the value of that property. Upon death or divorce, that property goes back to Rachel, in whatever state that it is. So what happens if a man sold nichsei milug? I'm sorry, ha'isha shemachar nichsei milug. Sorry. So Rachel's married to Reuven, she brings in property. What happens? During their marriage, Rachel sells off nichsei milug. She sells the property. Now both say, again, she should not do that, right? Why shouldn't she do that? Because husband has usage of it. But technically, if she did it, technically it works because she has title. So now watch this. Rachel's married to Reuven, and Rachel sells off nichsei milug during the marriage, and then Rachel dies. Rachel predeceases Reuven. What's the halacha? Habal motzi miyad halakuchos. The husband goes ahead, Reuven could go back after the death of Rachel and extract the property from the purchaser. Now why is that? Because he has the status of a lokeach. Interestingly enough, that shows that he has the status of a purchaser. And his purchase, so this is quote unquote purchase, preceded the sale that Rachel made. So essentially, like halachically, the way halachically we view it is, Rachel sold property. Right? She went ahead and she sold property that really technically belonged to her husband. So again, we have contradictory inferences. Right? So on one hand, the Mishnah just said before by Yovel that a husband is considered to be an inheritor of his wife's property. Here we're saying he's considered to be a purchaser. So we'll say, so which one is it? Amar Rashi, Bal Shavir Rabbanan Ki Yoresh, V'Shavir Rabbanan Ki Lokeach. Okay? So I'll say, this is it. There's no confusion. What is it? It's both. In other words, halacha l'maisa, in certain respects, they made him like an inheritor, and in other respects, they made him like a purchaser. The heichad de tavalei avdulei. Shabbos said, this is great. Essentially, Chazal wanted to benefit the husband. So what did they do? They gave him the status of both a purchaser as well as an inheritor. And whichever status benefits him more in a particular area, that's the status he has. Incredible. So both inheritor and a purchaser. So we'll say, so let's say, for example, by Yovel, they said, okay, you are like an inheritor. You're like an inheritor, right? Because again, by Yovel, if he was like a purchaser, then what would happen in Yovel? The property would revert back to its original owner. So when it comes to Yovel situations, we'll make you like an inheritor. And in the case of nichsei milug, right, where the wife sold off her nichsei milug, we're going to make you like a lokeach, like a purchaser. That way, again, when Rachel dies, Reuven can go back and claw back the property that she sold. Mishub Seder Didei, because otherwise he'd have a loss. Gabe de Rabin, Mishub Seder da Amana, Shavyo Rabbanan Ki Yoresh. And in the case of Rabin, in order not to cause the Amana to lose out on her support, we made the husband ultimately again like a Yoresh. Ay, Vaha, Gabe, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, Deika Psida Lekuchos, Vishavyo Rabbanan Ki Lokeach. And it was in the case of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina, where ultimately, again, there would be a loss for the purchasers. The Rabbanan made him like a lokeach. The Gemara says, 1 second. Hasan inhu afsidu anafshayu, kevan diika baal lo ibai lemizban me'isasa diyasva to say gavra. So we'll say, but in the case, even though, but in the case of the lekuchos, in the case where she sells off nichsei milug, aren't you putting the purchasers at a disadvantage? The answer is yes. But the answer is, if you're purchasing property from a married woman, you should know to do your due diligence. Because it's quite possible that the property that should... Now remember again, just to be clear, from a Talmudic perspective, could a woman have property that her husband doesn't have rights in? She could. But in the Talmudic model, if you're purchasing property from a woman, you should know that there's a real possibility you're purchasing nichsei milug. And if it's nichsei milug, just understand the husband has a claim against that. So therefore, again, the purchaser should have known better. So we'll say, it's always fascinating. The halacha will say, we're happy to protect you. We're happy to allow the sins to protect you as long as you are putting in the maximum effort to help yourself as well. So therefore, we'll say, bottom line, interestingly enough, is in this question of whether or not the husband is considered to be a yoresh or a lokeach, the answer effectively is both, right? Yes. And again, we will apply whatever status to him is able to give him the maximum amount of benefit. Incredible. Hadron alach yesh nochen avosai mazel tov. Okay, let's go weiter. Misha Meis. Okay, not the best way to start a new parak, but okay, you got it. Right, Misha Meis ben yech banu abanos. Shabbos says, this is really some fascinating cases over here. Reuven dies. Well, actually, this is called Yakov. Yakov dies. He leaves behind sons and daughters. See, here we go. So we referenced this even a little bit in the previous Mishnah. So Bizman Shan Nechasim Merubin. So when there's enough or a lot of property, Sahabanim Yirshu. So sons inherit. Vabanos Yizonu. And the daughters are supported. Because remember again. So remember, inheritance law 101. Sons inherit, daughters don't inherit in the presence of sons. Right? If it's only daughters will inherit. But with their sons and daughters, the sons inherit. But what the Mishnah introduces us to, while it's true that the sons are the sole inheritors, the daughters are supported by the estate. Now again, we'll discuss how long that support goes on for. But daughters are supported. Nechasim watin. So we'll say, therefore, if there's enough property, if there's enough property, good. So the sons get their inheritance, and the daughters get their mizonos. Nechasim watin. What happens if halacha l'maisa again, there's only a small amount of property? What happens there? So habonos yizonu v'habonim yishol al psachim. So it's fascinating. So if there's a small amount of property, and therefore, and we'll discuss what's a lot and what's a little. Small amount of property. So what's the halacha? The halacha is that the daughters are sustained, the daughters are supported, and the sons, literally, yishol apsach means they should go begging. And I will say, you can also get a job, right? But I'm saying, but there's also, what that means is, they do not get from the estate. So if the estate is small, so daughters' mizonos takes precedence over sons' inheritance. So this is fascinating, right? Because everyone thinks that sons have dominance over daughters in inheritance. So it's true. They do have dominance over daughters. In other words, a son will inherit, right? A daughter will not inherit where there are sons. But yet, a daughter's claim of mizonos, of support, is stronger than her brother's claims of inheritance. So when the estate does not have enough for both, the daughter's claim of mizonos will trump the son's claim of inheritance. Fascinating. So Mo's right there. So this is great. So Admon says, this is great. B'shvil shani zacher if sadity. So it's great. So Admon says, so because I'm a man, I should lose out. Right? Because I'm a man, I should lose out. So Admon says, it's not fair. I don't understand. We both have a claim. Right? So I have a claim, my sisters have a claim, I have a claim for Yerusha, my sisters have a claim for Mazonos. So why? Just because I'm a man? So therefore, again, my sisters get everything and I get nothing? That doesn't seem to make sense. Rabbi Gamliel says, Roa ani as divrei Admon. So interestingly enough, Rabbi Gamliel says, the truth is, Admon, you're saying good. So again, let's say, well, obviously, there's going to be a lot to talk about over there. We'll come back to that piece in a little bit. Let's start the Gemara. The Kama Merubin. So we'll say, so obviously with the Gemara, so here's the model that the Mishnah pointed out. Right? So Yakov dies, leaves behind an estate. So if the estate has a lot of assets, then okay, we know what to do. Sons get inheritance, daughters get mizonos. If there is a more limited amount of assets, what we call mu'atin, daughters get mizonos, sons fend for yourselves. So now we'll say, obviously, the obvious kasha comes up. Kama merubin. So how much is a lot? So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Kidei sheyazunu mehen elu v'elu shneim asar chodesh. If there are enough assets in the estate to support everyone for a year, for a full year, that's called nechasim merubin. That's called a lot of assets. And if it has that amount of assets, then that could trigger inheritance for the sons, and ultimately, again, mizonos for the girls. Take a look at the Rashbam. The Rashbam says, Kadeshi Azonu, Parnasa u'mizonos. Right? So support and food. Elu v'elu, banim u'banos. Okay, Kiarisa came to Shmuel. When I said this over before Shmuel, Amar Zu Divrei Rabbi Gamliel bar Rebbe. That's the words of Rabbi Gamliel Rebbe. Aval Chachamar, the Chacham say, Kadeshi Azonu mehen elu v'elu, ad shi bagru. So no, the definition of nechasim merubin is not just simply enough mizonos to go ahead and provide for a year, but rather again, it's enough mizonos or enough assets to provide support, which means mizonos and support until the girls become bogros. Ad shi bagru, until they reach the age of maturity. The Rashbam says, ad shi bagru, shekach hisna lenavian, ad tibagran, or ad tinasman k'dar m'ksuvas. Remember again, this is what's written in the Ksuva. right? This is also in the ksuva. Remember again, this is benos nukvan, right? There's benin zichrin, benin dichrin, right? There's ksuvas benin dichrin. That's the Tanai ksuva for the sons is that sons inherit their mother's ksuvas, and then again there's benos nukvan. This was a Tanai ksuva that a husband, a man, agrees to support his daughters until they reach the age of bagros or they get married, whichever one comes first. So therefore, again, the Chachamim say the definition of nechasim merubin means that there is enough in the estate to support the girls until the age of bagros. Itmar nami, we learn this as well. Kiyas Rabbi Yochanan, Amri Rabbi Yochanan, Kol she'azunu mehen elu ve'elu ad she'bagru hein merubin. Pachus mikan hare'ein mu'atin. So we'll say again, halacha l'maisa. We'll stop over here for today. Right, we'll stop over today. So again, halacha l'maisa definition of merubin is that there's enough in the estate to support the girls until bagrus, and anything less than that is going to be nechasim mu'atim. The nafkamina, nechasim merubin, sons can get inheritance, girls will get support. Nechasim mu'atim, girls get support, sons fend for themselves. We continue to our bosai. Shkoyach. All right, have a great day, everyone.